Hey guys, we're back, and that's Mamamoo in the background with 1 centimeter. And I said that we would come on here and talk about what went down the other day. I guess Mamamoo had their concert over in Korea, and a video appeared on the screen, the VCR, and they were dressed, all four of them were dressed in what would appear to be blackface. It's very difficult to talk about this as a person of color, but at the same time I have to remember that I'm a teacher during the week. So, okay. All four of the members were in blackface, and this went viral across the internet just about immediately. One Halu reported, Korea Boo reported, all K-pop reported on it. Mr. Popo was on it. Quick. Every group that I'm a part of on Facebook as a private person was all over it, and it's time for me to chime in. As you know, I only get to do the shows on Saturday, unless I'm doing a podcast during the week, so I'm going to chime in on this issue. I still love Mamamoo. Hwasa will always be my favorite, but it's time to hold RWB accountable. Because you know it was a management decision. It's time to hold the group accountable. I'm not saying that they're a horrible person for doing this, but the apology was issued this morning, and one of the things I wanted to point out was that they said they were completely ignorant of why that would be offensive. A lot of you, and let's calm down for a second. A lot of you are out there and you're like, no, they should know. It's 2017. Korea has the world's fastest internet, and yeah, there's no excuse for racist behavior. There really isn't any excuse for racist behavior. I agree with you. However, to argue that they're not oblivious, I don't like the word ignorant. I want to say oblivious to the fact of why blackface is offensive to people of color. I think that will require a little more education on their part. You're talking about a country. Let me turn this down for a second. Let's remember that the country of Korea doesn't have things like Black History Month, nor are they immersed in, let's say, African American history or black history in general, because it wasn't just African Americans. Haitians, Brazilians, all of those down there in the Caribbean had to endure this. I'm here to talk about it right now because it needs to be talked about. And as an educator, I think more education needs to be done on it abroad, especially when you have artists that are coming out into the international community like Mamamoo or like any K-pop artist. And yes, I'm aware that it has happened way too many times in K-pop. I'm aware that GD has done some racist things. I'm aware that we've seen blackface in Korean media for about 30 years. I'm still saying, for a large part of it, now there may be some intentional malice there because racism is everywhere, but for the most part, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I want to side on you're completely ignorant to it. And I have a couple Asian fraternity brothers that were completely oblivious, that came from Asia, like directly from Asia. They weren't Korean Americans or Japanese or Chinese Americans. And they were unaware of why it was so uncool to dress up like Mr. T and paint their skin black at Halloween. And one of my fraternity brothers did it, and instead of popping him in his jaw, which would be the normal response, honestly, I pulled him off to the side, and I'm like, such and such, I'm not going to drop his name on the air. I'm like, hey man, I know you don't mean it, because we were like best friends, we were boys. I'm like, I know you don't mean it, but that's really offensive, dude. I'm like, blackface it's something that's been written out in American media for years. Let me explain to my Asian listeners, especially the ones in Singapore, why this is offensive. Blackface is just about like using the N-word, okay? Blackface is meant to demean, degrade, and just basically dump on our culture. Keep in mind that black actors weren't allowed on stage when blackface first came out. So you'd have white people painting themselves black and acting in a stereotypical manner of black people. It gives you the wrong image of black people. It's not what we are, what we all are. and big lips. I mean, you would see some of the worst things. Big lips, people who just, they're in total imbecile and whatnot, and it's just no way that you want to feel. It's degrading. It's as good as using the N-word. It's like, for an Asian person, I guess, to compare it, do you remember in the 60s, well, maybe you don't, but in the 60s, there was a time where Bruce Lee became very offended about the way that Chinese Americans were seen in the media, around his time when he was going to the Green Hornet. Now, keep this in mind, too. When he was Kato on the Green Hornet, remember, the Green Hornet was seen as the hero, but Kato, we all know Kato was the one that was kicking butt and always saving the Green Hornet. They never wanted to have a Chinese man in the lead role. Also, let's roll back to Kung Fu. Originally, that role was intended for Bruce Lee, and they decided not to give it to him, and they gave it to a white man because they didn't want to see a Chinese person in the lead role. Also, one of the things that drew Bruce Lee to go back to Hong Kong and back to China to make movies was the depiction of Asians in media. They were always big teeth and like always playing this idiot on TV. And it offended him so greatly that he felt like he couldn't be here a lot of times. That's what blackface is like. Another way to describe it, how offensive it is, for Koreans, and this is not to knock on any of my Japanese friends, but for Koreans, it's as good as going to that war museum in Korea regarding the atrocities of World War II and before, and when the Japanese Imperial Japan, which doesn't exist anymore, it's as good as raising a rising sun flag in a Korean war museum. That would be offensive, correct? It's as good as raising a Japanese flag on Korean Flag Day. That would be offensive. You would never do that, right? It's as good as taking selfies in Auschwitz. Or I should say it's as bad as taking selfies in Auschwitz. And I potted down the music because I want to take a more serious approach to this. That's why blackface is offensive. For anybody living outside the United States, blackface is offensive because it means to degrade and demean and insult a culture. Can you imagine if Koreans were paraded, or Japanese or even Chinese were paraded on TV this day and age, 2017, and you guys were made fun of like that? Like, let's say, like when they made fun of EXID, when TMZ made fun of EXID, and the fan base, both international, which in this case would imply Americans, and Korean, went off on TMZ, and then even Amber herself went off on TMZ. It's like that. If you still don't get it, I mean, go online, look up blackface, look up racism, and then see for yourself. Educate yourself is what I'm saying. Don't be, number one hope I have for the K-pop industry, because I love it so much. And I love Asian music so much, Japanese, Chinese, all of that. I love that stuff so much. Get online, educate yourself. I wish the management, and I hope they do stay true to their apology, which I will read in a few, if I can pull it up on my phone. RBW issued an apology this morning regarding, I do have them up here. Regarding the blackface incident where they were trying to imitate Bruno Mars, and Bruno Mars isn't black, but his skin is darker. Anyways, here's it. I quote from RBW. "We are sincerely sorry for allowing such a video to be created. It showed an extreme lack of judgment and cultural sensitivity on the part of our team. We will work hard to ensure that these mistakes do not happen again, and we hold ourselves accountable to higher standards. We value the international fandom greatly and would never wish to alienate any of our fans. We are sorry to Mamamoo and their fans for allowing this to happen, and we will work harder in the future as a company that represents K-pop internationally." The other apology came from the official Twitter of Mamamoo. See if we can load that here. "Hello, this is Mamamoo. We are extremely sorry for our insensitive actions and use of blackface in our video portraying Bruno Mars. There is no excuse for what we did, and there are not enough words to explain how regretful we are. We are heartbroken to have hurt our international K-pop fans so deeply. We love and care so much for all people of every race, sexuality, religion, and gender. We love all our fans and are so sorry to have hurt our fans in the black community. We understand now that our actions were wrong and we never meant to harm with our video. We were extremely ignorant of blackface and do not understand the implication of our actions. We will be taking time to understand more about our international fans to ensure this never happens again. We hope that you will help educate us on these and other issues so that we can become better people and better artists. Thank you so much for bringing this to our attention and allowing us to right the wrongs that we have done. Now, I'm told that video has been deleted from future shows. So I guess it is a step in the right direction. I mean, only time will tell if they really mean this apology. I think it was sincere enough. I think that we as fans, K-Moo-Moos, you guys that are fans, I'm a fan of Mamamoo too. I think, like I said, it's a time to educate. It's not a time to throw back hate. Hate doesn't solve anything. Granted, a lot of times on the show you will hear me take a Malcolm X approach to some things, but this is not one of them because in this case, this doesn't deal with Americans. This deals with an international artist not fully understanding the volume of their actions. And from a sense, you can kind of understand it. Think about it for a minute. Up until about the year 2005, or no, not even 2005. I was in high school back then. 2006, K-pop was not that popular abroad. I remember a time when I used to listen to K-pop and get made fun of for it in middle and high school. You're talking about a country that, again, has not had education on the subject. Now, in the case of America, yes, we do hold people wholly accountable for these things because they've had X amount of years to get it right. We've had the civil rights movement. We've had Barack Obama as the president. We've had the end of slavery 300 years ago. We've had the abolishment of Jim Crow. We've had things like this. You're talking about a region that has never actually had, quote unquote, other races being in their country, therefore racism. They've never had to deal with it on a wide scale like we have. It's not something that'll come up in the curriculum in school. You shouldn't treat people this way because they're different. Because nobody was different not even 40 years ago, 10 years ago even. Yeah. That's pretty much what I can say on it. You need to educate them. What I would like to see from the K-pop industry is management taking these idols during their trainee days and exposing them to not just Motown culture, which you see a lot of it in K-pop. You see a lot of what they're doing Motown created years ago. And yeah, it is technically our culture. It is technically black culture. When they do that, I'd like to see them take them on, the full cultural experience. What was done wrong here? Mainly what was done wrong here. What not to do. I have a feeling with all the incidents, I have a feeling that it's not that necessarily they're racist. It's that they don't know that this offends somebody. And that, I hate this word, is ignorance. But it's also not necessarily incompetence on the part of management, but ignorance on the part of management to think that this is going to be accepted globally when, there's so many issues out there. Just my 2 cents. I'm DJ Sean the Batman, and we're going back to the music. You're listening to 91.9 KCSS.